Barcelona, Spain, the venue of an international tribunal designed to mobilize world opinion on the European Union's obligations under international law towards the Palestinians. The Russell Tribunal on Palestine is a three-day event which takes the form of a court hearing. Prominent politicians, academics and eyewitnesses are called to give testimony on Israel's treatment of the Palestinians and the EU's response to it. The jury will deliver their verdict on Wednesday.
These tribunals are tremendously important and prestigious. Now, this has been convened in order to talk about the repression against Palestinians that Israel is practicing all the time. And it is a very welcome development in what I hope is a non-violent but effective war against the violations of the Israeli state of international law and international norm.
Tribunal delegates argue that the Israelis are denying the Palestinians the right of self-determination by waging war on civilians, occupying their land and blockading them economically. And they said prominent European countries, such as Britain and France, are allowing the Israelis to do this by giving them diplomatic and military support.
That Gaza has been cut off from the world now for nearly 2 3/4 years. People can't leave. Patients who need medical care that's unavailable in Gaza can't get out, or if they do, they're subject to lengthy procedures at Erez. We know for a fact that at least 26 people have died because of that, because they haven't been able to get out. It's a mind-blowing thing that it's been allowed to happen. It's a straightforward violation of international law. There's no real ambiguity. It violates numerous principles of both human rights law and humanitarian law.
We should establish a criminal court to try those who violate the rights of Palestinians. We must pressure international institutions to respect their rights, and there can be no impunity for those who fail to do this.
The Russell Tribunal on Palestine isn't a legal court with the power to make Israel or the European Union comply with its rulings. But it feels that the struggle of self-determination of the Palestinian people, just like the struggles of the South African peoples and the Vietnamese peoples before them, will only achieve success if world opinion is mobilized effectively around the Palestinian cause. Roshan Mohammed Saleh, Press TV, Barcelona, Spain.
The European Union has been urged to live up to its commitments to the Palestinian people by an international tribunal being held in Spain. The Russell Tribunal on Palestine, which seeks to mobilize international opinion, says the EU is complicit in Israel's brutalization of the Palestinians. Roshan Mohammed Saleh, Press TV's correspondent, we have, and also we're going to turn to a lawyer. We have human rights lawyer James Phillips. Thank you so much for being with us. Well, go ahead, Roshan. Tell us the latest that you have on this.
Yes, thanks for that. We've just had a very interesting last session of this Russell Tribunal on Palestine, and we heard from a very eminent international psychiatrist who talked about the plight of Gaza and the economic blockade of Gaza on 3 sides by Israel and on 1 side by Egypt. Now with me I have James Phillips, who's an Irish barrister. Now James, you actually made an intervention yesterday to this tribunal. Can you summarise that for the viewers?
Yes. Well, you've outlined it very well, what is actually going on in the Chamber today and yesterday. My contribution as an Irish delegate and as an Irish barrister was to deal with the issue of the settlements, which the Israelis are in illegal occupation since 1967 in the entirety of the West Bank, and the plundering of the natural resources while they are there, such as water. And since 1967, after the preemptive strike which Israel launched in Egypt, immediately after that they took control of the West Bank, the entire of Gaza, Sinai and the Golan Heights. They have, of course, since returned Sinai to Egypt. They withdrew from Gaza in 2005 entirely to suit themselves, entirely to deal with what they had was a demographic problem. And in withdrawing from Gaza in June 2005 or August 2005, they effectively solved that demographic problem by approximately 1/3. It wasn't, as the world was led to believe by Bush and Blair when they went on the television after the withdrawal from Gaza, it wasn't that the Israelis were doing a wonderful thing for the Palestinians. They were hailed on international television by Bush and Blair, and to a certain extent the European community, at how wonderful Israel was withdrawing from Gaza, and that was the image that was put out, which was essentially propaganda. And it was quickly asserted by the Israelis that now this was an opportunity and a chance for the Palestinians to demonstrate that they were capable and worthy of nationhood. But what in fact happened was they left entirely to suit themselves, and they left behind them an area which was not rich in agriculture, not rich in industry, and have in fact since effectively controlled Gaza by land, sea and air. And we saw a recent example of that last year when they went back into Gaza and perpetrated a slaughter of innocents, murdering hundreds of women and children in December 2008 and into early 2009. And still the international community has not called Israel to account for that invasion of Gaza. So in terms of what has been done since 1967, they have occupied the West Bank in its entirety and have developed a whole system and network of settlement villages, settler roads linking those villages, which are high-quality roads, top-of-the-range asphalt, 4- and 5-lane roads which are for use of settlers only. Palestinians are excluded from those roads. If they attempt to use them, they will be shot.
Day 2 of the Russell Tribunal on Palestine in the northern Spanish city of Barcelona. In the morning session, delegates denounced European military and economic support for Israel. They revealed that Romania, France and Germany are the biggest arms exporters to Israel. And they call for the European Union-Israel trade agreement, which gives Israel preferential trading terms, to be torn up. Experts have told the tribunal that the European Union's own rules prohibit it from selling arms to human rights violators like Israel. But they say that European politicians are simply ignoring the European Union's own rules. Lawyers also told the tribunal that international law obliges courts to pursue Israeli leaders responsible for war crimes in Gaza, as well as prosecuting those who support Israel militarily and economically. And an ex-British government minister called for a worldwide campaign against what she called the apartheid Israeli state.
And it's quite clear that Israel is constantly seeking to expand its borders, wants the land without the people, and is confining the Palestinian people to a series of cruel enclaves that are worse than the Bantustans in South Africa, and imposing collective punishments in a way that breaches all principles.
Meanwhile, one of the co-authors of the United Nations Goldstone report, which accused Israel of war crimes in Gaza, called for a ban on the deadly white phosphorus weapon that Israel used to deadly effect there. He also admitted that the weapons were supplied by the United States.
White phosphorus is a highly toxic, volatile chemical that should never be used in wartime as an obscurant. It was withdrawn from my army in the 1970s. Simple as that. We withdrew it quite simply because we didn't want to imperil wild animals that roamed across our artillery ranges. Contrast that value with the value that dropped 400,000 wedges over the city of Gaza in a matter of several days.
The tribunal's jury will now retire to consider its verdict. It will consider if the European Union is impeding the Palestinian right of self-determination and how the EU should change its policies towards Israel and the Palestinians. Roshan Mohammed Saleh, Press TV, Barcelona.